beer 3. Michael is beer 3.
Okay. So this isn't actually a beer. This is a cider. Aspal dry English cider. Um, I picked a cider for this. I said earlier that I wanted to do these poems in a particular progression because I saw there was like a progression of mood from poem to poem. So you start with this kind of dark contemplative thing. You move to the idea of carrying things around, but it's not so dark. It's kind of, yeah, I do this. And then you get this last poem, which is like, as the title says, awakening. It sort of takes you out of where we've been thus far, into the light.
It's my hippie poem.
Yeah. So I wanted something that was more celebratory, more light, more, let's pop the corks. I'm a beer guy, not a wine guy, so I couldn't do champagne. But cider is one of those, it's a drink that is, in its making, is more like wine, in that it's fermented pressed juice. But in its culture is more like beer. So I am a huge cider fan. This is a very dry, sparkling cider, so it is kind of like spritzy, like you're drinking champagne, except it's apples instead of grapes. So,
all right.
Cheers.
Cheers. Oops, let me get my glasses in there. Hopefully your microphone picked that up on the other side of the Twin Cities.
I heard it.
Well,
delicious. Apples.
Mine is delicious. I couldn't find the same one that you had, so I have Angry Orchard hard cider, crisp apple. I was asking the manager at Hy-Vee, what's a dry cider, and I had a million questions for him, and I finally took pity on the poor guy and let him, go help other customers. And I chose mine by price. So you had a much more profound reason for your choice.
Yes.
Okay. Tony, Awakened, and this is new material. It's not in any book yet, correct?
Yeah, it's actually a year old this month because I wrote it last April. But yeah, it's not in a book.
Okay.
So
go ahead.
And I actually wrote this during a poetry reading, which is kind of rude, but anyway, here we go.
I'm not going to ask who was reading while you wrote it.
I don't remember. Okay, it's called Awakened. If you can't find the time in the middle of the night to build yourself up when no one's watching, you will notice the deterioration, the slow melt of time. Oh, I'm not saying it will get better. I don't know if it will. I do know that it can get better. They say there's always a light at the end of the tunnel. But it's not at the end of the tunnel. The light is everywhere but the tunnel. So stay out of the tunnel. Tell yourself that every wrinkle is a story, not a curse. Clean the mirror before you use it. Your reflection has earned that much because you're up now. And the wee hours are when people can feel small. But you're a giant in your world. Every last bit of you deserves to be awakened.
A very positive poem.
Yes.
So I took this, well, once again, it's another poem of reflection. I took it as a comment on changing our thoughts on choosing to see the positive, but the fun of poetry sometimes is what I get out of it isn't necessarily what the poet meant. So is that what you were thinking, or what were you thinking as you wrote it?
It was definitely thinking that if you believe it will be fine, it will be fine. But it's also, I know a lot of people that do self-body shaming. They're not being shamed by anybody I've ever heard, just by themselves. And it's ridiculous. It's just look in the mirror and be fine with it, because what else do you got? What is the complaint for? What is it doing for you?
Yeah.
Doesn't do anything for you. I don't necessarily think I'm the perfect example of the way people should look, but I don't look in the mirror and go, ugh, because it's not worth my time. It's too hard. Like, life's too hard already. Why make it? Why are you making it harder?
And why be critical of yourself? Because, I mean, there's absolutely nothing wrong with the way you look. So
Right.
you're not like the Elephant Man or, whatever.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
you know what? Maybe he was a very good and pure-hearted man. So, and that's kind of the point, is that everybody hopefully has something good. And if you don't, you should maybe make something good of your life.
Well, and your look is never going to be what's good.
Well, and some people are going to be critical no matter what.
Right.
And so, but it doesn't come down to that. Is this going to be, don't ask me why my alarm is going off.
I don't know.
Probably.
Well, then I don't have any questions for you if I can't ask you that.
That was the only question you had for me?
Yeah, sorry.
Do you have another collection coming up that this will be going into?
Not at this time. I don't have enough written work for another collection yet.
Is that sort of a goal, to get another collection?
I want to say yes. I have a little guilt about it because I have a lot of incredible poet friends who don't have any books, and I have 3. And I'm like, okay. If I get an offer for one, I almost want to give it to somebody else.
But they have to write the poems and pursue that, or are these people who have lots of wonderful poetry and
They do. They have tons, and it's like the pursuit of it is weird because I have just dumbly stumbled into all 3 of my books that I don't. When people are like, "Well, how'd you get 3 books out?" I'm like, it doesn't matter if I tell you the answer.
That's a very Gen X thing to do, to stumble into your 3 books.
Yeah, exactly. The first one I hooked up with 2 other poets who were well known in Kansas City. The second one I self-published. I guess you could do that. And the third one I won at a slam that happened to have that as a prize.
Uh-huh. So it wasn't really stumbling into it, though. It was that you had done the work, you had met the people, you were in the places where things were happening. So, I mean, yeah, I've got lots and lots of poetry too, but I'm not necessarily out there as much as you are meeting people. And which actually brings us to, you've been very active in the Twin Cities. And I think Kansas City had a huge, profound impact on you and poetry, didn't it?
Oh, yeah. So I'm from here. I moved down there in 2011, and I only lived there for a year and a half.
But it changed a lot for you in poetry.
Yeah, so the quick answer is basically there was a poetry reading where they were trying to break a record for the world's longest poetry reading. It's going to go on for over 5 days. I had friends who were in it, and they wanted me to be a part of it. And I was like, I've never read to people before in my life. Okay, fine. Whatever, I'll just drink a bunch. It won't matter. And I did it, and I met all these incredible poets. And suddenly I'm like, you know what? I'm not doing anything with poetry in the Twin Cities. And I wasn't. I didn't know any poets here, not a single one. And now it's like I know hundreds. It's weird because I got that experience down in KC. I got to run a couple of shows. I had a book under my belt. I came back here, started meeting people, started, talking poetry with people. And now, I have my own show. It's a well-known show. It's been going for 5 years. Not under my belt. I've only been doing it for 1 year. But I'm doing other things though, and I'm trying to promote poetry. I put together other random shows. I just did a show the day before Valentine's Day where me and some poets did breakup poems. So that was kind of fun, and there was no rhyme or reason to it.
Define a breakup poem for our listeners.
Oh, just any poem about breaking up with somebody or being broken up with or love falling apart.
For some reason, I thought you were talking about something else, the concept where I think it's where one person reads a poem and then the next person reads a poem that has a similar theme. What is the name of that?
Oh, I don't know. If you ever are asking me about a form name, I don't know. Well, I don't know anything about forms.
It's not a form. It's where one person basically plays off the next.
I've never done that. That sounds like fun, though.
Actually, I'm positive you have at Poets and Pints. I'll have to think about what it was called.
Oh, the Segway open mic thing.
Segway open mic.
That's where you're. Oh, yeah. Poetry Uno, as I called it.
Okay.
But yeah, that was fun. No, this was just people doing their heartbreak poems. Okay. And, I did poems that were 25 years old. Like, it was just fun. It was just it was a show about breaking up, and it was the day before Valentine's Day. That's why I did it.
Yeah.
Appropriate. So, one of the things I love, you've been very active in the Twin Cities, is your free poetry performance workshop. Can you tell our 5.3 million listeners, we've just gained some, about what inspired that and what makes a good poetry performance?
It's funny, whenever somebody asks me this, I sound like such a bitter old man. But the reason why I started the poetry performance workshop is I got tired of going to poetry readings that were boring. Oh my God. I just can't. Poetry in itself is not interesting enough. Maybe it is for some people. Maybe some people are so into the word that they will just sit there for it. I am not. I am a fidgety dude, and you got to give me something, or I am probably actually looking at my phone in the back of the room because so I was like, I'm trying to make poetry readings less boring. Mm-hmm. Everybody can be more interesting. You don't have to do what I do. And that's why I don't give people an example of what I do at those things until the end, because the point isn't to become me. Yeah. I don't know how I learned to become me, but I did. But you can liven up even what you're trying to do. So that's why I always ask you to read it the way you think you're supposed to read it first, like however you think you should read it. And then we work from there. I don't look at the poem and say, okay, here's what you should do, because that's not going to do anything for anybody.
Well, you have that background in acting. So I think we are getting really close to wrapping up. I have one more question. What is it that drives your passion for promoting poetry?
Besides mild narcissism, it would be just the fact that there's a lot of people out there that I know are good writers, and they don't feel like they have an opportunity to shine. And so that's why at Poets and Pints, we don't audition people. You sign up to be on the show, and eventually I'll put you on.